So basically I'm going to go over some things that Moses forewarned of. And I'm doing that because Moses, Israel, they need to know. And Moses forewarned some things, and I'm going to spew them out here right now. And I've gone on all the clouds basically, and they all have locked platforms which I can't get on. If I do phone them and ask, they will stop me from getting on it because they can tell who I am. I could have an anonymous, but that wouldn't work either. They'd still find me. So what can you do? I mean, Tor doesn't work that well. And so I'll begin. If only I could unlock everything. But there's an army of Borg that are against me. So what can I do? Moses forewarned. For 29% of the government is fooled, for they change linear to time. And Moses forewarned. 1% of America is food, for they are changed by binary, bilateral, dualist algorithms. And Moses forewarned. If they cannot accept Dr. Manhattan, they will not control the quantum time, or time beyond time. Moses speaks Congress killing truth. Moses speaks of a cash cow. Moses speaks of so little time given that Earth cannot survive without this man, this big man, the man who is a lamb, who is and was to come. Moses speaks of Israel being Spock, and France being Borg. Moses speaks of Borg killing Spock. Moses speaks of Israel beyond death. Moses speaks of heaven on earth. I, the child inside, lives. Moses speaks of the child inside. Moses speaks of a formula so divine China can console America. Moses speaks of a Borg slaughtering a dream. Moses speaks of Africa and America's continent. Moses speaks of a trial to overcome innocence. Moses speaks of a Spock loving the internet. Moses speaks of a cave on Splot. On Splot. Moses speaks of many plagues. Moses speaks of host vaccines. Moses believes hosts control all here on earth. Moses has to get rid of host vaccines. Moses explains blood bet. Moses explains the theory of Concord. Moses explains the relativity of single change. Moses explains the conference of Adelaide. It's the conference of Adelaide. Moses explains the equal claim on Russia. Moses explaining Langley is Spock 2. So Langley is Spock 2. Moses speaks of a man that showed all of us his spirit. Moses speaks of a worth in it slogan. A worth in it slogan. Moses speaks of the Spock death. And Klingon spring. Klingon spring. Like Arab spring, only Klingon spring. Moses speaks on Mednet and insanity. Moses explains fentanyl and the POW, the prisoner of war. Moses explains fracture of the core. So Moses explains the fracture of the core, and Moses explains deep space. Moses explains multiverse doesn't feel right, but by the multiverse time feels well. Beyond the multiverse, by the multiverse time feels well. So by it, not in it, but by it. Bypassing it. Bypassing the multiverse is a good idea. Moses explained God is smaller than parallel. Moses speaks as Robert Langdon. So in those movies with Tom Hanks, Moses is speaking to us. Moses speaks as Columbia State University. Moses speaks as a French super collider. Moses speaks 11% of Canada wish to be Jewish. Moses speaks the heart of us is many Vulcan. Moses speaks Borg killing Vulcan. Moses speaks as Earth is a Borg hostage. Moses speaks Vulcan and Klingon have a deep space Borg system as well. Moses speaks of 10 million dimensions. Moses speaks of time splits and collects and pools and springs. So time splits and collects and pools and springs. Moses speaks of calling a space a strike, a split, a spare. Or Moses speaks of calling a spare a strike, a split, a spare. Moses speaks of many nation, loving Spock. Moses speaks of Saw, China, killing Spock. Moses says any future savior who would cancel his junior self is not human, he's Borg. And he canceled the chosen one because he has a code that's designed a sick society. Junior self needs to breathe and love and last his time beyond stone. Moses says future Savior deserves to die for not sending Congress a message to keep Savior Jr. alive. Moses says Savior Jr. is slaughtered because Borg Christ killed his origin. Clone Chris is not a clone. Clone Chris is not a clone. Olympusverse is Tronverse. They are controlled the same. The multiverse is Borgverse. They are controlled the same. Our brains are in Borgverse. Our code is stored in Borgverse. And let me explain how. Question number 6. Wormholes and quadratic equations. Jump between two. All solutions. Beta jumping. And with that, I explained some shit. So thank you.